Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, and today we're going to continue along with Lookout on Parenting here, Survival Guide for the Single Parent by my friend Ted Moss III. We are on part 2 of this book, Getting Through the Day. If you guys remember, part 1 was Teddy's Tips. Part 2, Getting Through the Day. The I almost said simple, but maybe not simple. Well, simple in the instructions, but maybe sometimes difficult to implement tasks that you do through the day with your kids. Today we're going to be talking about getting your kids out the door. If you guys remember the first one, here, I'll go to the next slide. What was the first one was getting your kids up. Last time we talked about getting some decent food in your kids for breakfast. So we went over some tips that Ted gives, some steps to take, and first off was be prepared. If you say that you have a certain cereal, you get your kids up and excited for it, you better have that cereal, or else they will be severely disappointed. Also, in regards to food, we talked about giving limited choices, and the main point from this section was that you're not a short order cook. You're not going to be running around the kitchen like a chicken with your head cut off trying to make a customized meal. Think about if you had multiple children, how just crazy this would be in your kitchen trying to do this, let alone one. So give limited choices. Do you want A or B? Next, have a ritual. Have a ritual. If you can show some consistency, I think the consistency, and this is in other parts of your life too, consistency sticks. So if you have a ritual, if you have something that your kids learn how to do, your kids look forward to doing, they're going to know that what's expected of them once they reach the dinner table, or what's expected of them when it's dinner time. Next, reward performance. This was us talking about if your child does not want to eat something and is really, really against it. And Ted gave a couple good tips on what to do if they just really don't want to eat something. But if they take a bite out of it, praise it. Praise it, because you got to remember that your child's palate is going to be different than yours. They're not going to... A lot of children just don't like vegetables. I remember I loved bread, pastas, sugar, all the bad foods. But the healthy foods, it's just there's going to be an increased chance they're not going to eat it willingly. So if they do take a bite, praise it, reward it. Hopefully you don't reward it with something that negates the nutritional benefit of that food that they hate. Finally, enlist their help. We're going to talk about this today a little bit too. Children, I think, like to help. They like to be a part of something as long as you're making it fun. But enlisting their help at breakfast time can help you get out the door faster or get through breakfast time faster. And it might be slower in the beginning, but over time, as they get better, Ted says it'll reap benefits. It'll be way more efficient. Maybe enlist their help with picking out the cereal. Maybe enlist their help with putting the plates in the sink, some simple things. And then, then as they get a little bit older, then you kind of entrust them with pouring their own cereal or milk, etc. So that was last time. Today, we're talking about getting your kids out the door. So step number 1 in getting your kids out the door in a fashionable time is knowing where your piles are. Knowing where your piles are. So Ted asks us to remember that leaving home with your toddler is like taking a trip. So it's almost like you have to have a different mindset for it. This isn't just you grab the keys and you're out the door to go meet some friends. No, this takes a lot of planning. And that's why Ted advocates for thinking about it as a trip. The first part of packing for a trip is you got to be able to locate your stuff. Now, before you had kids, back when you were single, everything was neat and organized in your house. You knew where everything was filed away, right? Filed away, so organized in a succinct fashion. But now with kids, your files have turned into piles. So an unorganized, organized pile of stuff. So if maybe a file system would be like, alphabetical order, all the books on your shelf, a pile would just be all the books in one spot on the ground as like a comparison. But this isn't a bad thing. Ted actually says you have to use the piles to your advantage. And when you have kids, it's going to be ever increasingly harder to sort everything nice and neat in your house. But what you can do is at least be aware of like objects, similar objects that are going to be in the same spot. So all these books, all these toys, maybe they're not quite organized how you would do it, but they're in the same spot and they're easily accessible. So use it to your advantage. Keep the piles. Yeah, keep the piles. When it's go time, when it's crunch time and you need to find something, at least you know where the piles are of the stuff that you need. And kids are going to have an easier time helping in the process as well. Right? Because kids are going to be better able to understand piles versus a filing system, at least in the beginning, most kids. So it's going to be a good first lesson in organization, right? This is going to be a good stepping stone for them as they grow in life and as they get better at cleaning, keeping things tidy, etc. So next, have a checklist. It's hard to remember everything. I have a checklist. I have a checklist right now on my mini whiteboard of some stuff I got to take care of. And as I take care of them, I check them off. It's not that hard to understand. And Ted says it shouldn't be. A checklist doesn't have to be complicated and elaborate, just your must-haves. Keeping the list to a minimum and just the must-have stuff for that particular trip that you're taking. Now, what you do is you print off the list, make it a big list, and I'm assuming here because you maybe want your toddler to see it too, or you don't want to miss the list, so you make it big and you place it on the wall near the door that you use when you go out with your kids. So when you're preparing to leave, you recite the list out loud. You encourage your kids to do so too, and you see if you're missing anything. That's why you recite it, is to kind of give yourself a reminder. Oh, did I get that? Okay, did I get that? Oh, I didn't get that. Okay, we got to get that before we leave. Next, be a director. I have experienced this a lot. Ted gives a story in this section about when he was working at GM and he was picking something up and some guy was telling him, no, you shouldn't be picking that up. You got to delegate that. That's not your job. And maybe for something small like that, you don't really see the benefit of it because it's like you're right there. Just pick it up. You can't wait around for somebody else to do it, whose job it is to do that kind of stuff. But what if you're walking the floor of that factory and there's multiple things that you need to pick up? Okay, now you can't be spending your time doing that, assuming that you have a lot of other things to do. So that's where delegation comes in. Delegation, so assigning tasks to other people. Nobody wants to feel bossy, but it's just your job, Ted says. I mean, that's the expectation when you're a parent. You have to feel comfortable supervising your kids. Now, you don't want to delegate everything to your kids, right? Start slow, start simple. All right, make it fun. We're going to talk about that next. Every time they complete a task, reward with praise, and then increase the complexity or increase the number of tasks slowly. But being a director and being able to assign things to your kids that you know that they're capable of doing is going to help you in the mornings when you're running short on time and you got to get out the door, knowing that you can rely on your kids to at least get themselves dressed and put their shoes on, right? That would be a huge help, I'm sure. So be a director. And lastly, make it fun. Make it fun. When you're with your kids, at that age, a lot of things should be fun. They're going to see it as fun. They're going to try to make everything as fun as possible. They're curious. They have a different vision of the world. So use that fun to your advantage. All right. If you wake up and you're upset, you're yelling, you're late, it's going to eventually lead to your toddler being uncooperative. But if you were playful, I'm just saying from experience, when somebody's in the good mood, they're more likely to help you out. All right. And they probably help you out too if they're in a very bad mood from you yelling at them, but they're going to begrudge it and they're not going to enjoy it as much. Maybe they're not going to get as much done. But if you're being playful, positive, warm, cuddly, just some other adjectives, they're going to be more inclined to help things move along. So TED advocates for taking the tasks that you set for your children and make a game out of it. So you make a game out of who can find something first, all right, or who can complete their task before I do mine. And remember to, whenever they complete a task, again, praise it, be super positive about it, reinforce that. The goal here is to engage your toddler. Engage them, and along with making something fun and directing your toddler to do certain things, you want to put things in a way that lets them know it's time to go. So Ted had a certain ritual with his kids where it was whenever he would say something, they would say something back but rhyme it with what he said, so that it triggers in their mind, oh, we have to be out the door, because we only do this when we need to leave for somewhere, right? It's kind of similar to what we were talking about with like putting your kids to bed. This was one of Teddy's tips, where at first he lays out all the instructions that they need to do. Then he slowly pulls back to the point where he just says one word or one phrase, time for bed. And the kids know all the steps that they need to do to get to bed. So make it fun. Make it something to where your toddler is going to enjoy helping out in the process. And hopefully the message is conveyed that, we only play this game when we need to be out the door. Putting 2 and 2 together, we're probably leaving somewhere, and I should be ready. Something like that. Anyway, guys, that is the end of the slideshow. Thank you very much for listening. I finally have started the blog, and I've started posting. I'm going to put a link to the blog in the description of this video. I'm going to try to have a companion written format to each video. So check that out. Let me know what you think about it. Thank you very much for listening this far if you did. I'm super excited about this blog, so I'm really curious to see what people think about it. And guys, just thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe to the video, and let me know if you have any questions. Put them down in the comments. That's going to be it for today. My name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care.